So, Rowan, where are we?
So we're at Koolunga Native Reserve in Ferntree Gully in Victoria. So that's located, if you know Melbourne, and you might be able to see the Dandenong Ranges National Park, the hills in the background at the southeast. We're just at the base of those.
So to get here from Melbourne, kind of, if you're in the CBD and you see the hills and see the radio towers in the distance, how do you get here?
That's right. You can, if you're taking the train, you just jump on the Belgrave line and come all the way to Ferntree Gully Station, and then it's a short walk. Otherwise, you would take the main roads heading for the hills.
So what is Koolunga Reserve? Like, how would you describe this place?
It's a native bushland reserve, and it's an incredible place for biodiversity and habitat and wildlife, as well as an incredible place for people to engage with it or just have time out of their busy lives. So it provides so many things for both people and wildlife.
With it being a special place for wildlife, we are not far from the Dandenong Ranges National Park. What makes this place so special for local wildlife?
It's one of those major habitat islands and connections from that national park and that breeding habitat through to other locations in Knox. So if you follow the creek lines, you'll come across a couple of different habitat areas and corridors.
Yep.
And this is one of the largest first steps.
Gotcha. So that wildlife corridor idea, we are that first stepping stone on that corridor from the national park into habitat further towards the city.
That's right, and it helps that movement of wildlife, particularly the birds, but even other species like the insects and the butterflies and the fish and the creek animals. So, but another really important part of the reserve in terms of what it provides wildlife is a place for the wildlife to come and breed, particularly in the springtime when those opportunities don't exist in the surrounding suburbs and residential area. So there's an influx of birds around spring when they're moving from places around our houses and the backyards where they don't have things like tree hollows, because we've removed all of those big old trees that had the hollows. They come into the native reserve looking for a place to breed. So you get this constant ebb and flow of wildlife from the residential areas and then coming back in here for that natural cycle.
We'll come back to the birds because everyone wants to talk about, what kind of species you see in here, what are the awesome Australian, and local natives, but into the trees and this concept of there not being the habitat, the breeding areas for wildlife in suburbs and in backyards. So we're surrounded here by, pretty old trees, and we can talk about the canopy cover as well shortly, but is this the term remnant bush? Where is Koolunga along that sort of spectrum of how old this ecosystem is?
So the whole native reserve has a combination of the remnant parts, which means that it's the original and hasn't really been demolished after colonisation.
So this is a little bit of a postcard for what things looked like 200 years ago.
A snapshot, yes. And then we have other sections of the native reserve which were cleared and are being revegetated in sections or just left open as they are.
Which will come down to one of those places shortly, and we can see maybe some of the revegetation work, but just see that contrast going from this to cleared playing fields and are they pine trees down there?
There are some pine trees, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, introduced species.
Yep.
And if you look around, there are a lot of trees in this remnant bushland section, but they're really young. We don't have these huge trees that are up to 150 to 200 years old. So those have been lost over time. Go for a wander through this one.
Yeah. So we're going to go off the main beaten path and into it a bit more, into what you could think of as kind of dense bush in other places, but I'm looking up at the sky, Rowan, and I'm seeing a lot of it.
That's right.
What's the canopy situation like here?
It's stressed and it's declining, and you shouldn't be able to see these huge gaps of sunlight. And you look around us and we're we're walking past these major old trees that have fallen down in storms, and they haven't regenerated and regrown in the same speed that we need. So to get a hollow, for example, you need trees, particularly eucalypt trees, that are over 100 years old for that hollow to start forming, up to 150 to 200 years for a big hollow for one of the larger bird species. So we have these challenges where we have trees being lost in large storms. We have stressors from climate events like the Millennium Drought that caused a lot of stress on our trees. And it's being exacerbated by the development around the reserve. So as we've modified the landscape, we've put in all these houses and streets and footpaths which we need to live and enjoy, but that's changed the water flow and the water regime. So no longer do you have this slow seepage of water coming off the Dandenong Ranges and then flowing down into the groundwater seepage and recharging that groundwater table and slowly going towards all the trees during really hot periods like summer.
Yep. The sponge is drying out. You don't have that steady flow.
That's a great way to describe it. Instead, all of those that built environment captures that water really quick and flushes it down the system at a really high rate. So
we build to move water off of land, not soak into the land.
That's right. And now we're seeing the consequences of that.
So practically, is there a version of the future you see in any kind of time horizon where Koolunga does have more of a canopy cover and that would be more its natural state?
Absolutely, I do. Yeah. But it needs change and some investment. So we need to adjust the way we treat the stormwater and stop treating it as a stormwater. It's actually the start of our creek flows and the groundwater charge. So we need small modifications.
Savings account.
That's right. A savings account. We need just some small modifications the way the water is diverted and bringing it back into these natural areas, particularly the swampy woodland vegetation. So we have an endangered vegetation class, swampy woodland, where most notably you'll see swamp gums growing in them. And that it's endangered across Knox because they've all been removed for development, as well as the changed hydrology. So we need to divert just some water back into those areas to allow them to persist and then help all of the growing trees and even the mature trees, help them survive during the hot periods in the future.
Maybe to bring us back to the birds in a moment, but just the way that a hollow forms, just to make people kind of understand that a bit more. Is it right that it's, you got an old established mature tree, there's a branch, the branch dies or falls off, and then the sort of stem of the branch starting from inside the trunk that decays, rots away, leaving that hollow. So if you've got a tree branch in your backyard and you think how long that takes to rot away, let alone being on the ground, being damp all the time, this is in a tree, it's in the air, and that matter has to all decompose away just to leave that space inside the tree, which is what most of our native bird species need for breeding.
You've summed up perfectly.
That's a relief. I was putting
great.
together some assumptions.
And when people have those in their backyards, they may want to remove the tree or be concerned about its safety, but that's actually the starting point of our hollows.
Yep. That is a design feature, not a bug. That's not a problem.
That's right.
And then what are we doing with breeding boxes, and how are they a one-to-one sort of replacement for hollows, or are they kind of just augmenting a lack rather than being able to provide the same utility for these species?
It's a housing shortage.
Yep.
So it's a short-term stopgap measure, and it's not the solution. It's only a temporary solution.
Yep.
So we know that a lot of species, there's over 25 different bird species in Koolunga Native Reserve that need a hollow to breed in. And when you walk around, you won't find a huge volume of hollows. We certainly have them, but not when you have a deficit outside of the reserve. So the other side of the fence is houses and residential streets, and there's no hollows there. So if we want a diverse range of species, these really amazing birds to be living around us, we need to help them with that shortage and put up some hollows here, but also in backyards, on the side of buildings, on the side of power poles or other poles. In a really safe way, and well considered, well designed hollows will help seeing these birds in nature and actually connecting with them. It's one of the best experiences when you come across a native bird up close and you just, it's fantastic.
What do you see people enjoying most about visiting Koolunga? I guess in your conversations, not only with members of Friends of Koolunga, but just the public interacting with it. Do you have a sense of what are some of people's favorite aspects of the reserve?
It's a diverse need, and what people get out of Koolunga is very, different. But I think the one common thread is that we all have that sense of connection back to nature and having a break from our everyday life.
Yep.
So it's a great way to relax and just enjoy, and whether you want to just walk around and have time out or go and have a look more closer at the wildlife or the plant life or the insects, it provides something for everybody.
Well, if we get all the way down there, I'm keen to capture the feather stump down at the end of the reserve. And if
That's right. It even the reserve allows for some artistic expression. So there is a stump full of feathers where everyone's been collecting and making a whole piece of artwork. During the COVID times, we had a spoonville where all the local kids would bring their spoon down, and we helped maintain that. We've also had one of our founding members, Kathleen Loxton, who's a great artist, painting artist, and she's over the years drawn painted all of the different plant species and flowers in the reserve. So we have an amazing archive of what has been here over time in a whole different form.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a place you can get inspired to do a lot of creative things from. And sort of situate us now with where we are in the reserve. So if we started at the main car park, are we halfway through now, or?
We're about halfway to a third of the way through in the centre section and next to Waiute Creek. So the creek runs all the way through the native reserve from top to bottom.
So would you like to see, you can see the path here down the gully and then back up. Would you want to see free-flowing water through the bottom of that gully, or is this all
free-flowing?
Yeah.
But that
Seeping.
was seeping. What you're seeing is actually one of the original ephemeral waterways. So a waterway whereas captured because of the land formations. When it was in high rain, you would see water there, but we'll no longer have that. So that's part of the swampy woodland that I was talking about. That's an endangered vegetation class where it previously naturally did have water much more regularly. So I would like to see water recharging this section, but we're not looking for a new creek to be opened up.
Yep. And we've got one of the boxes through there as well. So do you know how long ago the first box went in?
From our group?
Yeah.
It's about 8 years. But people over time have installed a few other boxes, particularly for possums, but possums don't need boxes. Possums are pretty good out there, then they're surviving really well.
They're living in many a roof.
That's right.
Very good. Well, where would you like to go next, Ron? And we could go visit the re-veg spot up there, or if you think of a better one. And we can talk a little bit maybe about the Friends group.
Yeah, so the Friends group.
I guess maybe let's talk about it sort of when it's tangible with the re-veg work.
Yep.
But maybe for now it'd be like, so Rowan, when did you become involved in Koolunga, and when did your kind of story of you in context of Koolunga start?
That's actually a bit of a long story. So
it's all right, we've got all the way up this path.
So I grew up 2 streets away from here. So my early connection was actually playing here as a child with the local neighbourhood kids and my brother. We come down and played here and also in the creek. And then I learned to ride a bike in the open areas. A bit older than I was in the Scout Association, and I was doing my Queen Scout Award. And I came down and joined the Friends group back in 1999 for a couple of working bees. So that was my first interaction with a Friends group. And then afterwards, every day when I had a dog, I'd be here just running my dog and going for a walk and having a break, particularly during some studies.
Yep.
So I'd have that daily connection every day, sometimes twice a day to get out of homework.
Just basically here, like right here. This is where you've spent many an hour over many years.
That's right. And I joined the Friends group now, it's been 16 to 17 years, formerly volunteering on a very regular basis.
So how have you seen it change over those, nearly 20 years, not to freak you out, Rowan?
There's a lot of subtle changes that you notice over the seasons and the years. So the reserve changes every season. Now it's looking a bit more dry and like it's shrunk. And in winter it'll be much more dense and lush. So it actually is constantly changing. But over the 20 years I've seen areas become a lot stronger in terms of its habitat and biodiversity value. So part of that weed work to remove some of the threats, as well as the re-veg work to improve and enhance what we already have. So we're walking past a section that was previously just open grass again next to the creek, and that was planted, organised by council and planted specifically for sugar gliders. So now 15 years later, we're actually seeing sugar gliders here. That's what we saw last week at the Spotlight Night.
Yeah, actually see that cause and effect there of, as soon as they got the habitat, they're back.
They're in, yes. Yeah. And that's really exciting. And it shows that you're having a demonstrated impact on wildlife to improve their life as well.
There you go. And here's where I can kind of point to something very little. And there's a few plantings in here that we did 6 more months ago.
Yes.
But so here's the output from a working bee day. A guy right there.
That's right, it's going well.
So how many plants would you, if you were asked to barbecue, Rowan, how many plants have gone in to Koolunga in the last couple of years from volunteer working days?
Each year it averages between 600 and 1,000 plants.
Wow.
And that's all the way from really small ground covers and grasses right up to trees. So it's not all thousands of trees. It's a mix of every layer of that habitat and biodiversity.
And this is a dumb question, but that is a higher number than the natural kind of loss rate within the park. So the number of plants is increasing every year at this stage, you'd say?
On balance, it's increasing, but it's because it's also going into areas that had been cleared.
Yeah.
So this strip where we're standing now, you can see that there's a lot of young wattle trees. And so this was a grassy area before, and it's been as part of the plan with council to rehabilitate this and put plants back in. Yeah. So we are aiming to make this type of area, especially next to the creek, a lot stronger.
Very good. So many of the questions I want to get into are just like, so it's like the play area is being encroached on, but no, it was the one that was originally cleared into the bush. It is, yeah. So I won't go down that rabbit hole. No. Just the way you think about it, like no, the park is growing back. It's regenerating. It's regenerating. Nature is healing, type of thing.
But the other thing to remember is that there's 7 different open grassed areas. So we're not looking to replace all of Koolunga, not at all. We want that balance for everybody. And also the wildlife. So it's just improving what we have and giving something for everybody. It's a really important point that not many people know is that these open grassed areas that are also mowed, they're home to a lot of native orchids that start to grow in winter and then flower in that springtime. So even though it looks like it's just empty and there's no indigenous vegetation, this year we had one of the largest blooms of the onion orchids in this paddock. And on the other side of this re-veg area, there was a whole bunch of the sun orchids. So yes, it gets mowed and it's an open area and we walk around here, we walk our dogs, we play here, but then that natural cycle kicks in winter and spring, and we have this really important species that we also need to look after. So it's finding that balance for everything. So you may have noticed the fence on this side, and this is a recent addition a year after the council removed a row of pine trees. And in there, way back in the first management plan from 1994, it actually included the removal of all the pine trees, and the council has been doing this across time. this will be the third removal of a couple of trees. So they're introduced species, Pinus radiata, and what the effect that they have is that you can see how large some of these have become that we've walked past. They absorb all that moisture out of the ground, so huge trees need a lot of water. The pine needles also, when they come down, they suppress the growth of native vegetation. So you won't see much vegetation under pine trees, and if you went to a pine plantation, the most that you'll find is really blackberries that survive. Nothing else will survive in a pine plantation. So part of the plan was to remove them in stages, and the first stage was removed a year ago. And what we're seeing that now that the pine needles have been removed and the change in what's absorbing all the water, there's a huge amount of regrowth, just natural regeneration from seeds and that are either blown in or been deposited from birds. So birds like the yellow-tailed black cockies, that we all love them, they're cheeky devils. They're eating this natural native seeds from wattle trees. And I think what's happened is that they've come over here when they've been nibbling on some pine cones and they've been pooping out the seeds, and now we're seeing that natural regeneration. Before the pines were removed, the seeds weren't germinating, so it had that natural suppression that occurs. But now that they're gone, we're seeing this amazing change and transformation. And it's not just, so we've got a huge amount of wattle trees that are all just popping up. We had one of our largest years for Ostrastipa grass, a spear grass. It was almost shoulder high in terms of some sections, a really amazing native grass. But again, in the cycles, that will then get mowed during the summertime, and it'll come back in winter. So this will be a section for further regeneration and rehabilitation, and some planting as well. So everyone loves the yellow-tailed black cockies, and we want to be able to see them, but most of the time they're right up at the top of these really tall trees and you can't see them. So one of the amazing experiences I've had is actually seeing them low on a wattle tree, chewing on the side of the trunk to get out the wood grubs, because they love to eat those. So I think one of the amazing things that we can look forward to is when the pine trees have eventually been removed and we have all these native trees, these birds will be much lower and much more accessible to have that human to wildlife interaction and contact, and a much more enriching experience for people as well, not just for the wildlife. They love the pine cones from the pine trees, but it's like fast food for them. You shouldn't be having it every day. It's a tasty snack every now and then. So we'll give them plenty of food from the Allocasuarinas, the nuts on those, the wattles, new eucalyptus trees with gum nuts, as well as the wattle trees which have the wood grubs. So plenty of food for the yellow-tailed black cockies in the future, and enough to bring them back here, as Koolunga is one of those important wildlife habitats. So in the landscape, they know that they come here for a lot of food.
Excellent. Koolunga as a breadbasket.
Yeah. What you can see on this side of the open area is, this is what we call the sugar glider habitat. So council did bring out about 5 to 10 metres and planted new vegetation specifically for sugar gliders. So the acacias, the wattle trees, in winter when there's not many insects, the sugar gliders scratch the side and then the sap comes out, and that's what they eat during winter. So there's a lot of wattle trees along this section just for them. And that's what we were lucky enough to see in a spotlight night last week, some sugar gliders right here in the habitat. And one of the amazing opportunities that we have with this re-veg of where the pine trees were is now being able to connect more habitat for them. So at the moment there aren't any sugar gliders through that area because it doesn't have the right food sources for them to go. But we have this great opportunity to have, if we have really tall eucalypt trees on both sides, on one side, they'll be able to climb up and then launch and then glide over into the next section and connect that habitat. Now, that's great for the sugar gliders, but imagine standing here just after sunset and seeing sugar gliders glide across this open area right above your head.
I'll take that over a movie.
That's right, it'd be amazing. So we just need to get the planting right in the right locations and allow that connectivity to happen.
Let's talk about the plan. Who comes up with the way that this gets staged so that these amazing end results can happen, and that negotiation between the parties?
So this is led by Knox Council, so they're the land owner, they own the land. And so we're a co-manager and partner in terms of looking after and planning for things. We've been part of the discussions about what we'd like to achieve, particularly with sugar gliders going into the new habitat. But it is Council that's leading the way with what species go where and when things happen.
And then how much is a local community group like Friends of Koolunga kind of inputting into that planning?
We meet with the bushland team a couple of times a year, so we need to, because we're working on their land, we actually need to tell them what we're up to, share ideas, hear what they'd like to happen as well. So it's a two-way process for planning. And as new issues arise, we're always in constant communication to get on top of it as quickly as we can. So we have a really good dialogue with the bushland team.
That's good. And this is, of course, where the Knox Council ownership ends and Melbourne Water begins.
That's right. So the high water mark along the creek is where the Melbourne Water own and maintain. So Council doesn't have the whole reserve, so that section right through the middle where the creek is Melbourne Waters.
How good is that? You know, from standing just here, you've got the top of the Koolunga trees, and then you've got the Dandenongs, and you can just pretend it's just bush all the way.
You can really imagine when it was still connected.
There's your postcard.
And this will be a section where we're going to re-veg and plant this year. And so we started planting this a year or two ago with the bushland team. And what we were seeing was this intersection of a couple of paths keeps getting larger and larger as more people use it and go in different ways.
Yep. Desire lines.
That's right,
yep.
Yes. Desire lines are a real problem.
Yep.
So we talked to them about how do we actually do some more revegetation while keeping the balance of the paths. So it's finding that win-win for the biodiversity and nature, as well as people using the paths and being able to move around in a safe way. So really excited about how this will now start to transform, and people get to watch that as it goes. It's a great example of that partnership with Council and the team and this co-management and co-delivery approach, where we're talking about the issues that we saw on the ground, and we had that collaborative discussion about what could we do here and added it to the list for a future planting site. They've helped with the site preparation, so they brought in some large logs that have been reclaimed that'll have great ground habitat. There's a couple of seeding options at the moment. It also has a nice barrier for people to hopefully not walk through. And they also did the mulch for us. But then we'll go in and then do all the planting and help with hand weeding and looking after this over the next couple of years when it establishes as well. So a good tag team between us and Council.
Yep. If you look back at what's happened since the reserve was put in place and this place was protected, what risks do you feel have been averted for the park? What could this have been if it wasn't placed under protection?
So it would look very different. A lot of those threats, and it's the things that you can't see. So the threats really from introduced plants and weeds coming in and being completely invasive. So before our involvement and Council's involvement, there was a huge amount of weed trees, like the sweet potassium. So all the woody weeds have been removed. Now we're dealing with all the other types of weeds at a much lower level. And you also, it's hard to notice the impact. You can only see the impact based on what looks good, not what's been removed. So it's actually really hard to describe the impact, because all of those weeds that we pulled out, hundreds if not thousands of weed bags full of weeds have been removed, but you can't see them. All you can see is that we have really healthy habitat in certain sections and other areas that we need to keep working on. One of the other really impactful items or pieces of work that we've had is on wonga vine. So it's a native species, but for some reason it went out of balance here and it started to smother everything that was effectively shoulder high. So all the shrubs and ground covers were being smothered. all the trees, young trees and saplings were being strangled and then dying before they could then grow up and become a mature tree, which was one of those impacting factors on the tree canopy. So we've been focusing on that for a number of years and had volunteers dedicated to removing the wonga vine and suppressing it so that all the other species can actually go really successful and bring back the balance.
Have you seen personally any landscape be affected by kind of wonga being overridden?
Absolutely.
And what does that look like, if you can sort of paint a bit of a word picture?
So when wonga vine completely is out of control, you can't walk through that area. It's like a wall of vines. You need some sort of cutting device to get through. So it creates a physical barrier that we actually can't walk through.
And everything above that level will eventually, after it dies, there'll be nothing new after it. And
That's right.
The structure will, so it'll be just sort of a fallow and ruined place within decades and have to start again.
Yeah. And so that's one of the challenges where it is a native species, but the balance is out of whack. Something's gone wrong. Most likely part of what humans have done. You know, we've modified the overall landscape that has an impact within the native reserve. We're changing things that are impacting like climate. So the balance is not right anymore.
So what have you heard from the volunteers on what they get out of time they spend down here, and that feeling of taking out hundreds, if not thousands, of weed bags, and you know, what's their why?
There's a number of different whys, and but the one common thread between all of those people is that they have a common interest in nature and biodiversity and just want to help and do something and give back. When we visit places like this, we generally receive something from nature, where we're benefiting from having time out, we're benefiting from like the greenery around us. It's good for our mental health. But that's commonly a one-way relationship. So people are looking to give back and have that two-way relationship with these native areas. We have people that, one of our volunteers was really concerned about climate change and seeing that on a larger scale, not enough was being done. So he came along and wanted to help out at a local level. Another volunteer was recovering from a stroke, and as part of his recovery, he joined our group and then had a great social connection, a great physical activity that was part of his rehabilitation. And he's absolutely got a buzz out of being part of this local community group. We have, like myself, I started off as a dog walker really regularly, and I wanted to give back. So we have a number of the dog walking community that have joined and want to help out the places that they get to enjoy.
Yep.
And we also just really enjoy the company. So there's a great community feel when you come along to a community event like this, a friends group. And you actually notice there's a buzzing energy at the start of every working bee and at the end as well from the achievement that people have had. So it brings people from diverse communities, diverse backgrounds and interests, and even the intergenerational, the whole different cultural backgrounds. Everyone's coming together for this one common good, and you can see the impact that it has on a human level.
Magnificent. Nice.
Real.
Have to come back here after, just put it down on its tripod, just sit here for 5 minutes and just get all the little time-lapse of birds and stuff.
There's a lot of bird activity today.
Yeah.
I'm really excited, yeah.
Oh, wow. Put on a show for us.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest thing is that holds people back from going down to a community group or a friends group? Because it's definitely not uncommon now for people to be aware of climate change implications for our local, like, I think it's fair to say most people enjoy when they do get out in nature, and most people know that it's at the stage we have to intervene to protect these things. We can't just leave it alone and trust it'll be all okay. So I guess maybe, what do you think of the people who are volunteering now? What do you think was the thing they had to overcome to come down for the first time? Is that sort of just fear of not knowing anyone, just the classic kind of social apprehension, or?
For some people it might be. For others it's that time challenge where we have competing priorities.
Yep.
And there's a number of people that always contact us, there's a number of people that contact us and say that they'd love to join, but they've just been a bit busy. That's it. I think that's it. Yeah.
Sounds surmountable. So Rowan, what's the creek called? And what's the story there?
So this is called Wayute Creek, which is a Wurundjeri Woiwurrung word, which means stringy bark in English. So Wayute Creek, as its formal name and designation, is only new, relatively new. Before this, it was called the Forest Road Drain for some reason. And as you can imagine, in the history of the local landscape, waterways were put underground and into drainage, and they needed to just give it a name, so that's what it was. Unfortunately, when you call something a drain, people treat it like a drain. They don't treat it like a creek and a natural waterway. So we saw a number of repeated pollution events where the creek turned completely milky white, it's gone fluoro green, bright red, as well as just the actual physical rubbish like water bottles, plastic, all the works that flow down the stormwater network. So our group has worked with Melbourne Water a couple of times to try and have the name changed. And the start of this creek name happened at our 25th anniversary, where I was having a walk with our Melbourne Water partner, Jared Polkinghorn, and talking about the issues of the creek and how we actually need to really need to change the name and the designation from a drain to a creek. That started the process, and in working with Jared, we were able to then work through the process of the naming conventions, work with the Wurundjeri, and to find a word that's appropriate for everybody and can connect with. So now we have Wayute Creek. So Wayute Creek, although it officially on the map will start here, because that's the end of the stormwater network and the start of the creek, the starting point is actually, its origins are actually the side of the Dandenong Ranges National Park and also all of the houses and the streets around us. So if you think about it, the roof on your house has gutters and the stormwater drains in the street all capture rainwater. They are now the starting points for Wayute Creek. I don't like the word stormwater because it doesn't really convey that actually it's a starting point of a creek. We need to treat our roads, the water on our roofs as creek water, not as stormwater and a functional flush it away category. So really rethinking what we're calling it.
Houses as catchment.
Sorry?
Houses are creek catchment.
Absolutely they are.
Well done.
That's like,
yeah. How you doing?